faster as good for the markets.
It's this arms race going on where there's no benefit.
Eric Hunsater is the founder of market data firm Nanex and one of speed trading's harshest and most colorful critics. One of his issues may well involve your retirement savings. Let's say a mutual fund in your 401k wants to buy a large block of shares. If a high-frequency trader gets there first, the mutual fund will have to pay a bit more, which ultimately comes out of the retirement savings of you and many other regular Americans.
It's like a million paper cuts. Everybody's paying just a little bit more for buying and selling.
Back at Tower, Gordon disagrees. He and other high-frequency traders point to a general trend of lower trading costs.
Markets are getting squeezed to these kind of ultra levels of efficiency, which really should make everybody pretty happy.
And that's another way speed traders sound like techies. It's like the response Google and Facebook give about privacy. Don't be afraid. If you were as smart as us, you'd understand. We're making life better. As far as the big firms that manage much of America's retirement money, they don't agree on whether high-frequency trading is good or bad. Like any technology, it could help, but could cause problems. Even high-frequency traders worry about someone smarter and faster taking them out.
This is not the sort of business I could leave to my kids. At some point along the way, we're going to miss some turn in technology, and all the good work we've done will not be enough.
For now, his firm and other high-speed traders are a reality and an oddity in finance, where high-tech reigns and old Wall Street seems far, far away. In New York, I'm Mark Garrison for Marketplace.
What was it John Maynard Keynes said? Not the bit about economics being a dangerous science or that markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. No, I'm thinking here of that bit about how in the long run, we're all dead. That, as Keynes himself would acknowledge, is a business opportunity, but the business of death is changing as society changes. That's the crux of a piece that Sandy Hingston wrote for Philadelphia Magazine not too long ago. It's called The Death of the Funeral Business. Sandy, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here, Kai.
What is it about the business of death that makes us uncomfortable? I mean, you point out, actually, that funeral homes and that entire industry, it's really the business of distraction.
Yeah, they're helping us through a transition. When someone in our lives dies, it creates a hole in the social fabric, and we have to wait and work to fill that hole in. And one of the jobs of funeral director is to help us do that by giving us stuff to think about. You know, what dress do you want the deceased to wear? Does this hair look good? These really don't have anything to do with the big questions of life and death and the hereafter. They are distractions.
And it's a series of distractions that are facilitated by rich. And that's, I guess, the theme of it is I've always rich was the champion.
Yeah. One of the funeral directors that I spoke to with the piece said it's always been about telling the person's story. The change that we're seeing now, well, a couple of changes. One is that the rate of cremation has gone up incredibly. It's gone up by 20% in the past 20 years. And part of that is driven by economics. It's much cheaper to be cremated than to be buried with a traditional, all the frills funeral. But I think it also has to do with the changes sort of from being part of this larger religious framework where you're just one part of Christianity, for example, to I'm me, I'm an individual. You're celebrating your personal life here on Earth rather than your move from Earth to the hereafter.
And as you point out, we are becoming, and this is not you pointing it out on the survey show, we are becoming a less religious society. And so if we are less concerned with the hereafter, then that's bad for the funeral business.
It's very bad for the funeral business. If you take into account that it costs about 4 times as much to have that full frills funeral, you'd have to have a lot more people die just for funeral homes to break even. They were counting on what they call the golden age of death when the boomers all began to drop off the earth. But we're hanging on. And we're also wanting that less expensive cremation. So there would have to be some really major trend shifts.
And you go to the other end of the generational spectrum as well. And you point out that millennials, they're going to change jobs every 3 years, and they don't know what they want to do tomorrow, let alone in 20 years. And so the idea of being planted in one place for eternity is simply not selling.
Or even having mom planted in one place for eternity. What a drag. Who's going to go back on Memorial Day and Mother's Day and tend to that grave? People don't do that anymore. People used to treat cemeteries like parks. You would pack a picnic lunch and go hang out with mom. I don't see my age or anybody younger ever doing that again. So you have sort of these dead zones, literally, these places nobody goes except when they have to for a funeral.
Does it matter in the business of death where we die? I mean, people used to die at home in their beds, and now increasingly it's hospitals and it's big.
That's one of the most interesting things to think about. When Abraham Lincoln was shot and they carried him across the street into that house, and the room where he was packed with people, they were there because they knew he was going to die and they wanted to watch. When you were on your deathbed, your friends and relations used to gather, and it was so that they could be there and observe that moment of transition when you passed from this world into the next world. Granted, they didn't have TV. There wasn't.
It was. They had nothing else to do.
But it was considered momentous, that passage. It was, the most important thing that was going to happen to you in your life. And we've lost that sense of momentousness, I think, and we don't have that sense of oneness with a hometown or with a church or with a community that we once had.
Sandy Hingston, writer for Philadelphia Magazine. Sandy, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Marketplace is supported by T. Rowe Price, understanding the connections of a complex global economy. T. Rowe Price, invest with confidence at troweprice.com. By Battelle, solving what matters most in national security, health and life sciences, energy, and the environment. More at battelle.org. And by MailChimp. More than 5 million people and businesses around the world use MailChimp to design and send email newsletters. More at MailChimp.com. Additional support from the University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business.
This final note today, in which one is reminded of O.J. Simpson and the white Bronco. This morning, Newsweek revealed the identity of the guy who they say invented Bitcoin. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto, which everybody had foolishly thought was just a pseudonym for the guy who invented Bitcoin. It turns out he lives in an LA suburb called Temple City. That is, the guy who might have changed money as we know it lives in Southern California. But that's not the crazy part. The crazy part is that the media has been chasing him all over town in a Prius today. One stop was at the Associated Press Bureau here in Los Angeles, right next to Marketplace World headquarters. That is our brush with fame. It's all over now, but apparently there was a sushi lunch involved as well at some point. So there you go. All right, we're done. That is Marketplace from 8 p.m. John Buckley, John Haas, Patty Hirsch, George Judson, Ethan Lindsay, Margarita Noriega, Dave Shaw, and Betsy Streisand are the Marketplace editing staff. The managing editor is Sarah Gilbert. I'm Kai Risdall. We will see you tomorrow. This is APN.
And this is 89.3 KPCC. I'm Nick Roman. Traffic time now, Ontario 15 south before the 60 freeway. A crash blocks the right lane of the freeway. Traffic is heavy from 4th Street. Linwood 105 East. Something's blocking the carpool lane as you approach Paramount Boulevard. Traffic, though, is flowing okay for now. That's going to change real soon. Outside of that, the freeways look pretty good. We do have the usual slowing in the usual spots, 405 North through West LA into the Sepulveda Pass, the 91 East out of Anaheim Hills and into Corona, and the 10 East out of Santa Monica all the way to downtown LA. It is slow, slow, slow. It's also 3:30, and that's time for All Things Considered.
Traffic supported by City National Wealth Management, providing investment management, trust, and financial planning services throughout Southern California. More at cnb.com/wealth.
KPCC supporters include
Air China, the only airline with nonstop service between Los Angeles and Beijing, offering double daily flights featuring flatbed seats in business class. Air China, the perfect choice for travel to China and beyond.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Audie Cornish. Coming up, we remember Robert Ashley, a maverick composer who wanted to change the world of opera.
He geared these outbursts to two people on a couch with a drink and some snacks.
But first, these news headlines.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Jamie McIntyre. The State Department says a planned referendum in Ukraine's Crimea region on whether to become a part of Russia would violate international law. NPR's Jackie Northam reports pro-Russian government authorities in Crimea have set a referendum for March 16.
State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki says the proposed local referendum in Crimea to join Russia would violate international law and is incompatible with Ukraine's constitution. Psaki says under its constitution, any issue altering the territory of Ukraine must be decided by the whole country, not regionally.
To be clear, the premise that Crimea could hold a local referendum or vote in their local parliament to secede from Ukraine and join Russia is completely illegitimate under Ukraine's constitution.
The Obama administration has ordered a ban on travel to the U.S. to people involved in the Russian action in Crimea and the freezing of their assets in the U.S. Jackie Northam, NPR News, Washington.
The Senate has blocked an attempt to change the way the U.S. military handles cases of sexual assault. By 55-45 vote, the Senate killed a bill sponsored by New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand that would have removed the power to decide whether to try sexual assault cases from the military chain of command. Gillibrand says members of the military who've been sexually assaulted simply don't believe they will get justice from their commanders.
The people who do not trust the chain of command are the victims.
But the argument that carried the day was articulated by others, such as New Hampshire Republican Kelly Ayotte.
No evidence has been presented that we are going to help victims more, or that more cases will be prosecuted or more will come forward if we take it out of the chain of command. That is why I want to hold commanders more accountable, not less.
The Senate rules the bill needed 60 votes to proceed to a final vote, fell 5 votes short. On Wall Street, the Dow closed up 61 points. This is NPR.
And this is 89.3 KPCC. I'm Nick Roman. A federal jury says Anaheim police were not in the wrong when they shot an unarmed man in 2012. Jurors in Santa Ana ruled the deadly force used against Manuel Diaz was not excessive or unreasonable. Police say Diaz was a known gang member. He was shot and killed during an encounter in which Anaheim officers said they thought he had a weapon. He didn't. The shooting prompted a tense protest outside Anaheim police headquarters. The attorney for Diaz's mother says he will file an appeal. It's not often that members of Congress condemn colleagues on the House floor, but it happened today. A resolution accused Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of abusive behavior after a dust-up in the committee hearing yesterday. KPCC's Washington correspondent Kitty Feldy has the story.
Darrell Issa was chairing Wednesday's Oversight and Government Reform Committee hearing, where an IRS official declined to answer questions. Issa abruptly ended the hearing and cut off the microphone. The committee's top Democrat, Elijah Cummings of Maryland, denying him the customary opportunity to make a statement.
We're adjourned. Close it out.
Outraged Democrats introduced a resolution calling on the House to strongly condemn what they called Issa's offensive and disrespectful manner. It was defeated along party lines, 211 to 186. LA Congresswoman Karen Bass says the vote was important to make a point.
Because if you don't, just like with a small child, if you don't deal and intervene in the behavior, then other people could pick up on that.
Issa steps down as head of the Oversight Committee at the end of this year because of GOP performance. From the Politics and Government Desk in Washington, Kitty Feldy, 89.3 KPCC.
The Marine Corps says a dropped or kick grenade probably set off the explosion that killed 4 Marines during a training exercise last year at Camp Pendleton. A Marine Corps spokesman says a captain and a master sergeant were relieved of duty this week for failing to properly conduct the November training exercise. The spokesman says they allowed members of a Marine demolition team to hand each other live ammunition as they gathered unexploded rounds from a firing range. Sports news, Dodgers and Angels 4-4 in the 10th in Arizona. Dodgers slugger Hanley Ramirez hit by a pitch and came out of the game. Seems okay, though. Sunny skies, highs in the mid-70s today. Weekend in the mid-80s. Watch out for big surf and strong rip currents tomorrow into Saturday. It's 3:35.
More reporters.
From the Politics Desk, I'm Sharon McNary. I'm Leslie Bearstein-Rojas.
Covering more beats.
From the Immigration and Emerging Communities Desk, I'm Josie Waugh.
On the air.
Shirley Jihad.
And online.
89.3.
At kpcc.org.
Support for NPR comes from the Walton Family Foundation, whose K-12 initiative works to empower families with quality school choices. WaltonK12.org.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Audie Cornish. 83,000 American service members who died in wars overseas are still missing. The Pentagon believes the remains of about half are recoverable and spends more than $100 million a year trying to find them. But a joint investigation by NPR and the independent news organization ProPublica has found that the agencies tasked with the job are inefficient and their methods are outdated. In fact, the relatives of some of these lost Americans feel they have to do the work themselves. NPR's Kelly McEvers has the story of one family's quest to find their World War II soldier and bring him home.
The soldier's name was Arthur Kilmer, known to his family as Bud. He was a good-looking kid who grew up in Chicago.